But now the full grid of the British Grand Prix of 1991 here in ideal weather conditions. Mansell pole, Senna second, then Patrese and Berger in third and fourth places, followed by Prost and Alain. The two Benettons, followed by Gugelmin and Modena, then JJ Leto. The first British driver, Mark Blundell, 12th. His teammate Brundle, 14th. Then Pirot, and bringing up the rear of the grid, Johnny Herbert in the Lotus, his teammate Mika Hakkinen and Michele Alboreto, who has qualified the footwork car in spite of very considerable transmission problems as a result of their decision to move from the Porsche V12 engine to the Hart DFR V8, and they've had to completely redesign and rebuild the transmission in just 3 weeks, a mammoth undertaking. They've succeeded in doing it as a result of an enormous amount of very hard work at the factory at Milton Keynes, but it is still a bit suspect. Now you can see there, as we look at Nigel Mansell sitting impassively in his Williams, that the tyres of his car are completely enrobed in the electrically heated blankets, which get the tyres up to racing temperature as near as makes no difference. And that, of course, saves drivers having to wait for 2 or 3 laps before they really give it a bootful. But it doesn't give any particular team an advantage, because any team in Grand Prix racing that wants to have that equipment can have it. It's a fairly big budget item in itself, but in comparison with the costs of many other things that make up the car, it's a pinprick, and it's a very important addition. So Nigel sitting there, the umbrella. It's getting quite hot at Silverstone, I can tell you that. And in that cockpit, it will soon be hotter still. There have been temperatures of about 150 degrees at some of the races, like Brazil, where it gets very hot indeed. And there's just a vestigial windscreen in front of Nigel Mansell's visor and most of the other cars. Look at the heat haze. I told you it was hot, and that's how hot it is. And now you can almost feel the tension rising, because the instruction has been given slowly to clear the grid. The officials are moving away. The mechanics are wheeling away the pressurized air bottles that are used to start the engines of these cars. And very soon the grid will be completely clear, and the signal will be given to start on the parade lap, the final rolling lap before the 59-lap British Grand Prix begins.
So, engines and away they go on the parade lap, warming tyres up. Nigel Mansell, the poleman, to lead them round. So, Cops Corner survives from the old circuit with only minor modifications, and now we move up through Maggots, and this is where it changes. They turn right, then left, then right again through the Beckett's complex as it now is, and that's very quick indeed through the first right and left, and putting enormous G, 4.5 G in the corners, with 9 accounted momentarily as they change direction. Now down the Hanger Straight, you see Mansell going away and into Stowe, which is now a slower corner as it tightens up into 4th gear, and they go around and then they keep turning right. You can see the old circuit now going straight on, and they go down through the Vale, which is a wiggly complex, and then hard on the brakes, where we expect overtaking to be possible here for the 2nd gear left-hander that you see them now in the distance there, still in 2nd gear, tight right, and then up through the gearbox as they accelerate out through the old Stowe corner. Sorry, the club corner rather, old club corner. And now back onto the old circuit, the old perimeter road of the airfield here, through Abbey Curve. And that's Mansell giving it a boot up through Abbey. And then we come back to more new, under the bridge, and here, Bridge Corner. And the definition of this corner from the drivers who've been on it, is unanimous, and it is mighty. And for that they mean it's a big hairy corner, and it's really quick. In qualifying yesterday on the sticky tires with the light fuel load, the really quick men were taking it absolutely flat, but it was mighty exciting doing that. When I say flat, I mean no lift off the throttle at all. in race trim with the full fuel load on, and even later in the race today they'll be just lifting, but they'll still be taking the corner in top. A little lift. Now, the second gear as they come round the what one might call the stadium complex with all the grandstands around. Second gear, they go left and left again. Then a short squirt down that little straight to where Mansell leads them round. Second gear for the right-hander there. Little short squirt where he is now. There he goes. And then the another right-hander and out onto the circuit. Back onto the old circuit and onto the old, rejoining the old woodcut corner. So that was Senna coming up alongside Mansell there, just practicing a start. So we look down on the front row pair. They will be leading, Mansell will be leading the field in as slowly as he can now, because all 26 cars behind him have to take up their grid positions and stop in the right place before the red light will go on, and the starter has to be satisfied that everybody's in position. And there is Mansell looking straight into his eyes, but with the darkened visor we can't see much inside his helmet. But he will now be trying hard to relax as the field all come slowly onto their grid position, and when they're all stopped there will be a signal from the back of the grid. A green flag will be waved. That is the signal for the starter that everybody's ready. He will then press the red button, 4 seconds approximately of red light, green, and we're off.
25 will be off because Michele Alboreto, I am very sorry to say, is missing from the grid in the footwork. Now, watch the lights then. 59 laps of the British Grand Prix are about to begin. That's it! And Senna gets ahead of Nigel Mansell, and a spin at the back from Bertrand Gachot has spun the Jordan, but Senna leads into Copse. Nigel Mansell is second after a searing start from the Brazilian, and Riccardo Patrese has spun. Well, 2 spinners even before the competitors have done half a lap, and you can see already that Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell are pulling away from one of the Benettons. I think it was Nelson Piquet in third position.
Yes, and the starter certainly held the cars on the red a long time as Mansell makes a dive inside Senna, and he's taking the lead. So Mansell in the lead already, made up for a poor start, but I have to say I thought the starter made a bit of a mess of his job there. Alain Prost was creeping badly from the third row of the grid, but I think he checked it and may not be penalised for a jump start. He certainly could be though, so we'll watch out to see if the officials have deemed Prost to have jumped the start. In the meantime, Mansell, fabulous overtaking manoeuvre. He got too much wheel spin, and there was a lot of creeping and jumpingness at the start.
With Nelson Piquet third, and then there is a big gap before the fourth place man, and I'm looking to them now as they come into the complex and out of it for the first time. Down to Luffield, the right-hander. Sure enough, the first 3 are out on their own. It's Berger fourth, one of the Ferraris in 5th place.
Yes, and that gap, I'm sure, was caused by Schmozzle up at Copse, which put Patrese into a spin. So Mansell through, already pulling away, and Mansell looking pretty comfortable, and the Benetton going extremely well behind Senna.
Mansell leading by nearly a second after the first lap. It's Gerhard Berger in 4th position in the second of the McLarens. Alain Prost is well up. But now look across the circuit and you'll see Prost, and ahead of him, of course, leading the race, Mansell, Senna, and well up to Roberto Moreno.
Yes, Moreno going very well indeed. And Berger in 4th place.
Nigel Mansell has got the race by the throat at the present moment. Look at him. Now there he is. He's out on his own. Behind him is Ayrton Senna. Behind him is the Benetton. Then it's Berger. Berger, of course, who went out after just 4 laps in France. Mansell under the bridge. Senna, Moreno in 3rd position. And then the McLaren of Berger.
Yes, but Berger's not showing on our computer. Patrese, I see, crawling into the pits just opposite us, so he didn't get going properly after the spin. There is Gerhard Berger, but on the computer printout, he is not showing in 4th place. We see him in 4th place on the road. We're trying to find out what's happened, but with the suspicion is that he may have been penalised for a jump start. I said there was a lot of nervousness at the start. The officials held him too long. Well, I understand that people are saying no, but certainly there's Roberto Moreno going very well. Berger in fourth, Prost fifth.
And Maurizio Gugelmin in sixth place. That's the highest position that a Leighton House car has had this season. And the first retirement of the British Grand Prix is Patrese, Riccardo Patrese, a very, very sad man. And this is what happened.
And here we see the start now from on board Patrese's car. Remember, we saw him off on the side of the track at Copse. Let's see from his point of view what happened. No, he's behaving himself. Well, somebody bumped him. He got bumped from the inside, no doubt about that. And it looked like Berger who actually made the contact with him. So looking at it from, well, we see him fly over the curb. That's one of the Ferraris going askew. I didn't see which one. And we didn't really see Berger. We didn't see the contact then, but we certainly saw Patrese get launched as the tyres made contact.
And you saw the Ferrari rudely tread on Patrese's front wing. And the race order now then on lap 3 is Nigel Mansell leading Senna already. There he is by 2.4 seconds. Roberto Moreno 1.5 seconds behind Senna in third place in the Benetton. Berger is fourth, no matter what the computer says. And Alain Prost is in fifth position ahead of Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton House. And Maurizio's car is well set up for this circuit. It's nice and smooth, it suits the car well, and they could do well here at Silverstone. They desperately need a finish. That's Alain in seventh place, and in eighth place it's Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell.
Yes, and we now have Berger back on the computer. Well, what did I say 15 minutes ago? I told you these computers are a bit too high-tech and I didn't trust them. But anyway, the computer has now recovered and we have Berger as fourth, both on the computer and on the road. Well, on the road was the important thing.
And there's Moreno. Now, Berger is closing right up on Roberto Moreno. Nigel Mansell is soon, he hopes, going to be in a position where he can control this race from the front with a healthy gap, and Berger goes through. Gerhard Berger moves up into third position by taking Roberto Moreno's Benetton Ford, and that in turn is being caught by Alain Prost in fifth position as Berger, Moreno, Prost come towards us. Gugelmin is following them. Alain is in seventh place under the bridge through, and that's a curve camera that's looking at the cars.
Yes, and that incidentally, Berger's overtaking manoeuvre was the first one we've seen in anger at the Vale, which is, of course, the bit on the circuit that was specifically designed to be a potential passing point for Formula One cars. So, Nigel Mansell pulling away quite comfortably. Now some 5 seconds clear of Ayrton Senna. Indeed, 5 seconds it is. And Berger up into third place, so the two McLarens are second and third, but really Mansell is going away pretty comfortably as well. He really seems to be under no pressure at all and able to extend his lead at nearly a second a lap.
And already I can confidently tell you that Nigel Mansell has created a lap record at Silverstone, if for no other reason than that this is the first time the circuit's been used. 1 minute 29.69 seconds, and that is 0.8 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna's fastest lap. And Gerhard Berger is only some 3 seconds behind his teammate, but look at the battle for fourth. It is Moreno, followed by Prost, followed by Gugelmin, followed by Alain, and they are absolutely together. Then Piquet is 9th, Leto is 10th, De Cesaris in the Jordan is 11th, and then the two Brabham Yamahas of Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell, 12th and 13th. The second Leighton House car, Ivan Capelli, is in 14th, and you're watching now Prost with Moreno, 4th and 5th.
Yes, and Moreno seems to be struggling a little bit now after his good opening laps. Remember, he's on Pirelli tyres, and of course that may be quite a difference, but Prost is certainly beginning to look for a way past him. And in the meantime, the two Brabham drivers, Brundle and Blundell, are certainly running well up the field, and they need a good result here to get points. guaranteed travel situation.
Yes, well, Mansell is starting to control the race from the front. He's now believing in reliability and nobody getting in his way to get his third win in Silverstone at the British Grand Prix. But Berger is undoubtedly starting to close on Ayrton Senna, and this is the real struggle in the race that you're looking at.
Yes, and Prost made it through there, so Alain Prost moves up to 4th place ahead of Moreno. And that's important for him. Incidentally, Murray, when you said the lap record for Mansell, we ought to be a little bit careful on that, because remember the sports cars were here earlier, and they were in the 29th. And here we see again Alain Prost at the end of the hangar straight, the classic toe up behind, and an outbraking Moreno into Stowe corner, the new tightening up corner there. So no, I believe the sports cars were in the 29th, so let's wait till they're in the 28th, and then I think we can say it's the genuine lap record.
Yes, sir. And the sports cars, of course, are the Jaguars. Sensational motor cars in that category of racing. And there's another one of the Williams. And look at the gap now between Mansell and Senna as the Brazilian comes towards us with his teammate Gerhard Berger third. Now coming towards us as Berger goes out of the picture. Prost is fourth. Moreno is fifth. Sixth is Alain, who has passed Maurizio Gugelmin. So the 643 V12 Ferraris are starting to move up through the field. And then behind Gugelmin is Stefano Modena.
Yes, now what will be interesting is to see how Prost can perform on his own without traffic, because that was his first clear lap, and that was as quick as both Senna and Berger ahead of him. But of course, he'll need to go a little bit quicker than them in order to catch them, and that's what we'll be looking for, to see if Prost does a lazy tries. Jean, good look down the inside of Moreno then, but wisely thought the better of it, because I don't think he was going to make it in that gap, and maybe should have waited till he got there on braking for the second gear Vale corner. So Moreno on the Pirelli tyres seems to be struggling, and that may well be the reason. He's going backwards and everybody's having to fight their way round him. So far Prost has managed it.
Yes, the Pirelli people were hoping. There, Alain goes through. So Jean Alain now up into fifth place behind his teammate Alain Prost, who you just saw going out of the picture. Meantime, Nigel Mansell has completed 7 laps in this 59-lap race, and his lead now over Senna is a massive 8.7 seconds at this stage of the race.
And we better watch for Alain Prost, because behind, with the exception of Mansell, who is really having a very easy time, just as we expected, on his own. That's from onboard Mansell's car, going down the hangar straight to Stowe corner, now onto the brakes, into Stowe corner, 4th gear, staying in tight, keeps going round to the right, and now down a little squirt through the Vale, hard on the brakes again, 2nd gear. And this is where you need the semi-automatic gearbox, because you can change gear as you corner, as you're going away out through Club Corner, the old Club Corner. And into the pits goes one of the Delaras. I think that was Leto, possibly. JJ Leto, short race for him. He'd qualified well. The Delara team going very well. We stay with Nigel Mansell. He's gone under the bridge, round the mighty bridge corner, and now into the 2nd gear complex, and he's using that flick gear change with his fingertips behind the steering wheel. It's a rocking lever. Now, you watch. You can see him flick. If you watch his hand carefully, it's a little bit difficult to see. Up through the gearbox, Mansell to complete 8 laps and leading very comfortably indeed. But the fastest man on the circuit, other than Mansell at the moment, is Alain Prost, who's now caught Gerhard Berger, and will be starting to look for a way round Gerhard Berger. Quicker than both the McLarens he has been for the last couple of laps. And Jean Alain is also showing good Ferrari form behind him. So the 2 Ferraris are starting to put the McLarens under pressure. It looks to me Prost is already there behind Berger, and Alain is catching them.
Alain Prost was not entirely happy with his 643 Ferrari. Look at him, he's visibly catching Gerhard Berger in 3rd position in the red and white McLaren. I was saying Prost wasn't entirely happy with the balance and the handling of his Ferrari yesterday, but they've been working on it. He had the half-hour warm-up period this morning when he appears to have got it absolutely right. And of course, nobody has got as much experience of Grand Prix racing except Riccardo Patrese as Alain Prost, and he's using every atom of it at the present moment. He's within sight of the gearbox of Gerhard Berger's McLaren now. Berger third, Prost fourth, Alain fifth, Moreno sixth, Gugelmin seventh, Piquet in eighth position, Modena ninth, De Cesaris 10th, Capelli 11th, Martin Brundle is in 12th position, and of course Mansell leads Senna now by getting on for 10 seconds. And Nigel Mansell has completed 9 laps. Senna goes through 10.3 seconds behind. This is the battle. Berger third, Prost fourth, down to Copse. Now at Copse, it's a fifth gear corner. They approach it, are getting on for 180 miles an hour. Now they're up into sixth gear on the approach to the Beckett's complex.
And this is where Prost will want to get very tight behind Berger if he can, so that he can get the toe, and he's not really close enough, I don't think, to get the toe down to Stowe corner to outbrake him going in. Well, he's not too far away, but maybe not just quite close enough to duck out. Let's have a look. He'll get another chance in the Vale. Now, if he can get a good run round here, he'll be looking to go down the inside into the left-hander in the Vale, second gear. Not close enough. Berger also in a position to defend that had he been attacked by Prost. And this will be an interesting battle, particularly to see if the Honda V12 can use its muscle to fend off the Ferrari. The Ferrari chassis clearly working well now. And Prost having a look down the outside, Berger defending through Bridge Corner. Nothing to do here around the complex. And it's going to be a matter of positioning himself, and I think Prost his preferred place would be on the hangar straight. So for that, he has to start the positioning now. I don't think he can really try and dive inside into Copse. Unless he can get alongside. Well, if he gets alongside, nope. And if that's cost him some space, he needs to be very tight on the gearbox of the McLaren when he exits the left-right-left. Sorry, right-left-right, I mean, of this one.
And it will not have escaped you that Ayrton Senna is within sight now of Gerhard Berger, who has got Alain Prost in fourth position right behind him, and that Alain in the second Ferrari is catching his teammate as Alain Prost makes another passing effort and is again rebuffed by Gerhard Berger. And you would think that this would enable Ayrton Senna to pull away from his teammate Berger and from the two Ferraris. It's getting very close indeed now for third, fourth and fifth place, Berger, Prost and Alain, but Senna is not in fact doing so. Nigel Mansell, by the way, leads now by 11.3 seconds, still lapping consistently in under 1 minute 30 seconds, and there he is completely on his own. He's got an enormous lead now. We're on lap 11, but this is the fight. And behind Alain, who is in fourth position, the rest of the 25 runners who started this race, because, as I said earlier on, the unfortunate Michele Alboreto in the footwork, despite all the enormous amount of work that had been done at Milton Keynes, failed to get away. So, into Copse. The McLaren with the Honda V12 engine, and Berger's pulled out a little from Prost, who was closer on the previous lap, but Alain, meantime, is grimly closing up. So Williams leads McLaren second, McLaren third, Ferrari fourth, Ferrari fifth, out of Chapel, down the hangar straight. This is where Prost might get through, but he needs to be closer than this. Meantime, Andrea De Cesaris has gone into the pits from 10th position, which means Martin Brundle has moved up to that place, getting closer to the magic 7th position that they need.
Yes, that'll be a big disappointment for the Jordan team, because De Cesaris was third fastest in the warm-up this morning. That's in race trim, on race tyres and with full tanks, and that was evidence of yet further progress by the Jordan team. Now, Berger still fending off Prost, and now Alain has joined in the challenge. And as yet, the power of the Honda V12 has kept the Ferraris behind him. And add that, and Berger's fairly firm dealing with the challenge. And quite justifiably, he's shut the door quite firmly on Prost, when Prost has had a look so far, but Prost hasn't really been in a position to have a go. And in the meantime, ahead of them, there's no doubt that Nigel Mansell has already eased his pace. He's now driving as Prost continues to climb all over the back of Berger. But Mansell certainly is now judging his pace to that of Ayrton Senna behind him.
Although Mansell has just gone round fastest of all, 1 minute 28.9, and in the pit lane, Jonathan Palmer is waiting to talk to Riccardo Patrese.
Riccardo, that was an appallingly disappointing way to start the race for you. Can you tell us what happened? Riccardo, that was an appallingly disappointing start for the race for you. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I have not really much comments to do. I think that if you have the television, you can watch what happened. I think that I was out of the race without any fault, and for me it's very disappointing, of course.
But very sorry, Riccardo.
Well, Riccardo Patrese clearly knows less about what happened than we did. We know he was hit by somebody and suspect it was Berger, although I mustn't malign the Austrian by saying that it was. Meantime, he's got more than enough to worry about at the moment in third place, because Alain Prost is swarming all over the rear end of the McLaren, and Alain is doing the same thing to the Ferrari in front of him. Third, fourth and fifth. Mansell, by the way, he's still out there, 14 seconds ahead now, lapping still over half a second faster than Ayrton Senna in second position. As the third, fourth and fifth men go through, it is still Roberto Moreno in sixth position. Now in seventh position is Nelson Piquet, his teammate, because Maurizio Gugelmin has disappeared from the picture and gone into the pits after having held that seventh place, an excellent position. But it looks as though the Leighton House car has got problems again. Capelli, though, in the second Leighton House is in ninth place. Martin Brundle 10th. Morbidelli in the Minardi Ferrari is 11th. Mark Blundell in the second Brabham Yamaha, and the cars are going much better here at Silverstone than they have in any previous race, is in 12th position. Johnny Herbert is 17th in the Lotus Judd, and the Ferraris are still at it, hammer and tongs. But Gerhard Berger, who has only finished twice in the 7 Grand Prix that we have had so far this season, is keeping them off. This is the halfway point and the 16 race, and through goes Alain. Jean Alain just absolutely zooms past Alain Prost.
Yes, and that certainly took Alain Prost totally by surprise. You, I think, Murray, and me as well. It took us all by surprise, and that was a terrific manoeuvre, a good opportunist overtaking manoeuvre by Alain, and that would be quite, in a way, not too bad for Prost, because I would fancy Alain's chances. Here we see it again. But it was how he came through Bridge Corner that set that up. He was very, very quick through the almost flat-out Bridge Corner, and he pulled right up on Prost there. And if I was Prost, I wouldn't be too unhappy about that, because Alain can maybe find a way around Berger. Berger's a hard man to pass, and it may be not a bad idea to let the young and hard-charging Jean Alain do the dirty work and try and find a way around Berger, because there's a chance that between them they might go off and leave Prost with a clear track. And that, I have to say, that thought will not have escaped Prost's assessment of the equation of the various possibilities.
It is my guess that Ayrton Senna has already in this race, as he did in France last week, settled for a high placing. I'm sure he knows, indeed I know he knows, that the McLaren is not quick enough to beat the Williams, so he will be saying second place will do for me, because I have 48 points in the World Championship. If I can keep building points, that's good, because every point in the World Championship counts this season, and second place is as good as he could possibly expect, given the dominance of the one Williams that's left in this race after Riccardo Patrese's misfortune in the opening lap. Well, Alain now has picked up the cudgels by hammering past Alain Prost. James says he may be able to give a harder time to Gerhard Berger. We're soon going to be able to see.
Yes, at the moment he doesn't seem able to get as close to Berger as Prost did, and that won't be very helpful in Prost's thinking. But it's interesting also to see that Prost has actually taken the opportunity to sit back just a little bit. You see, he's giving him a little bit of space, which makes me think that he's taking a rest and also giving them room to have their own fight, and then he'll watch the results of that fight before he decides what to do next. So you see the lead that Senna has over them, not a big one, but Senna certainly will be racing for a good placing here, and anything he can pick up from retirements, because after all, there's only one Williams left out of two at the moment, and still a lot of Grand Prix to go.
Now, while we look down from the helicopter at Gerhard Berger in third place as they go into the complex, they being Berger third, Alain fourth, and closing right up on Berger as he did on Prost on the previous lap.
Yes, and I think that was a mistake of inexperience by Alain, because he was no way he was going to pass Berger there, but he's shown his hand, and the way he did it to Prost clearly jumped Prost and surprised him, but Berger, I'm sure, will have been paying enough attention to have seen that, and he will know to defend against that in the future. So that's a bad tactical error by Alain. He's given himself away.
On lap 17 out of 59, as you look at the battle for third between Berger, McLaren, Alain Ferrari and Prost Ferrari, Nigel Mansell leads Ayrton Senna by 16.2 seconds. Senna is only 4 seconds ahead of number 2, which is Gerhard Berger, and then there's that tight battle but with Alain and Prost right behind him. Now Prost in 5th position, that's number 27, is 10 seconds ahead of Roberto Moreno, number 19, who is in 6th. Moreno is just 1.6 seconds ahead of his teammate, number 20, Nelson Piquet, who is 7th. Then there's another gap, nearly 14 seconds before Stefano Modena in 8th position. Capelli is 9th, Brundle is 10th, Gasho is 11th because he's passed Mark Blundell. 13th is Emanuele Pirro, 14th is Nakajima, 15th is Boutsen. Johnny Herbert is hammering along as he did in France last Sunday. He's 16th in the Lotus Judd. And Mansell is now on lap 18. Just a bit of a twitch there from Berger's McLaren. He's under pressure all the time, of course, but Gerhard Berger, who has got 5 Grand Prix wins under his belt, this is his 107th Grand Prix. Now there's Senna second, and you can see how close the battle for third is. That's Alain 4th and Prost 5th.
Yes, but the pressure for Berger isn't quite as great as it was in the first few laps of having Prost behind him, because he's down. That's Capelli, who's had a spin. He's off on the side of the track. Has he kept the engine running? And the way he's parked there makes me think maybe he has stalled it, because yes, steering wheel off. Going to have to move that car, but I'm sure they can do that easily enough. But the pressure back to the battle, the pressure on Berger isn't so hard now, because he has seen that his Honda engine's got enough power on the straights to make it very difficult, and that so long as he makes no mistakes, the Ferraris are really going to have to find a way round him, and that gives a little bit of comfort. He doesn't have to hurry, because the one thing he doesn't want to do is to make a mistake. It doesn't matter if he goes slowly around the corners, so long as he goes cleanly around them, because that way there's nothing they can do. They can't pass him in the middle of a corner, and when they get onto the straight, so long as he's clean out of the corner, he's got the power. And tremendous shot of that trackside camera at Bridge Corner, as we see the rescue tow truck going in there to remove the Leighton House car.
Well, I've got some marvellous news for the footwork team people at Milton Keynes. Michele Alboreto has not only got going from the pit lane, I told you he hadn't started from the grid, and indeed he hadn't, but he's in 20th position, and this is lap 19 in the British Grand Prix, and I don't know what poor Ivan Capelli has to do this season to succeed, because he has now retired his Leighton House with its Ilmor V10 engine from every Grand Prix in which he has started. And this is the man who has led Grand Prix, who led the French Grand Prix so brilliantly for so long last year, but he seems to be fated thus far not to finish. third, fourth, fifth, no change. Yes, Nigel Mansell is still going. He's on lap 19, he leads by nearly 17 seconds, and there he is. Well, let's have a look at Nigel Mansell now. He's driving absolutely impeccably. He's absolutely at the top of his form. He's tremendously confident. He's been very, very, very good-humoured all through the practice sessions. He's been giving umpteen interviews. There's been enormous pressure on him, but he's had the confidence of knowing that he's got the best car, but having won the French Grand Prix and having done well in the previous races, but having been let down by the car rather than himself. And as I said earlier on, there's the indication that he's got the fastest lap at 131.45 miles an hour, and he's 18 seconds ahead of Senna now. He's getting up towards this traditional cushion they look for of 20 seconds, and he's the fastest on the track.
Yes, and taking it very easily, but this is the battle that where the excitement is at the moment, and I have to say that I think Prost may regret the fact that he allowed teammate Jean Alesi to jump him, because Alesi seems to be unable to get as close to Berger as Alain Prost did. Mind you, I have to say that Alesi will probably attempt to an overtaking mover from further back than Prost would, but Alesi doesn't seem, from his car's performance, to be able to get right under Berger's rear wing in the way that Prost was able to earlier. So in a way, Prost probably has more chance, and maybe they can communicate via their pits, because they can't talk direct to each other from the cars, but if they can communicate via the pit, it might be Prost might be saying to them, ask young Jean to step aside for just a second and let me back in front so that I can have a go. They see the slide there from Alesi's car almost onto the camera, which is buried in the curb. And a very spectacular shot, that, right down at as they come through. They're doing something like 175 miles an hour as they come through that bridge corner. So now we're going back to the start of the race. This is the first corner. Now, Patrese on the outside in third place. Look what's happening. And Berger, it looks like, down the inside, who's punted him. Berger, in a way, got himself where he had no escape and got no room. But I think Berger was at fault there. I'd like to see that again, just from a little bit further back, just to see how Berger got into that position and whether, in fact, Patrese had shut the door on him. It was a little bit hard to see. I mean, we're not looking necessarily to blame anybody, but we like to see. And here we go, coming up the straight. Now, Berger is beside Patrese already. Patrese moves over to take a line and then starts moving in, and Berger's right beside him. And I have to say that Patrese drove it. Well, Berger hit the curb, in fact, and bounced onto him a bit. No, so Berger, I think Patrese was leaving room for them to go side by side, but not very much. And Berger got it on the curb, and that bounced him into Patrese. So I think one would have to say it's a bit 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Patrese squeezed him, but squeezed him so much that it left Berger with no alternative, and the curb bounced him back in. So I think they both contributed to that coming together.
Wie die Ferraris, und trotzdem
22. Nigel Mansell leads Ayrton Senna by just under 18 seconds, and the gap between Senna in second place and Berger in third is 3.7 seconds, and you don't need me to tell you how close the Ferraris are of Jean Alesi, who is in fourth place, and Alain Prost, who's fifth, because there they are, you can see for yourselves. And then there's a long gap, as you can see in the background, before Roberto Moreno goes through. He's 20 seconds behind Prost now, followed by his teammate Nelson Piquet as they come down the hangar straight, and Piquet is starting to close up on Maurizio Senna, he's closing up on Gugelmin in the Leighton House car, who has rejoined the race, and out of it goes Roberto Moreno. So Moreno, who was sixth, is out, Up to that position goes Piquet. 7th now is Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford. 8th is Modena. Up into 9th place comes Martin Brundle. 10th is Mark Blundell. Remember, they are shooting for 7th place, ideally. Better if they can. 11th is Pirro. 12th position is Nakajima. Johnny Herbert is in 14th place. And still the battle for 3rd continues unabated. Gerhard Berger is in his 107th Grand Prix, so he knows how to resist pressure. And he's catching now Morbidelli, the young Italian, in his first full season of Grand Prix racing in the Minardi Ferrari.
And Gerhard Berger, apart from the little schmozzle at the start, is having one of his best races this year so far. He's being held up there by Gugelmin in the Leighton House, so that won't please him, but I think he's just got enough space. Yes, enough daylight between him and Alain's Ferrari. But Senna is certainly not pulling away from Berger at all. If anything, Berger is holding him. And of course, if Gugelmin does hold people up, he can get a very substantial fine, and that's the new game in Formula One.
Yeah, Gugelmin was fined $10,000 in the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours for allegedly holding up Nigel Mansell on lap 70 out of 72. I say because hardly anybody agrees with the stewards that was what happened. But anyway, he has been passed now by 3rd, 4th and 5th, and Alain Prost is starting to have a go again now. He may have decided it's time to resume the attack on Alain, who goes through. Alain goes up into 3rd position, and to 4th goes Prost, and down to 5th goes Berger. Thump, thump, as quickly as that.
And he jumped Berger from miles behind. That really was an amazing piece of driving by Alain, but highly skilled, and that's put Berger into the pits. But Prost jumped on the mistake because Berger was forced wide as a result of that surprise, and that made room for Alain. I didn't see any contact, so one would have to think that Berger, unless he bumped to a puncture, that may just be a routine tyre change.
Well, Gerhard Berger has not had the luck this season, to put it very mildly indeed, but you're right, James, it is a routine car stop. 6.9 seconds for Gerhard Berger. That's a good stop. You remember in the French Grand Prix, we had that absolutely unbelievable, but we saw it, time of 5.5 seconds for Ayrton Senna to change all 4 wheels and tyres and still get out in the position that he was in.
Now, let's watch the Ferraris, because I think that Prost is going to be quicker than Alain on his own, or when they're both on their own. And let's see if how Prost's seniority in the team works, whether he can actually ask the pit to tell Alain to let him pass, because I do think that Prost will catch Senna a lot quicker than Alain on his own.
Where is Gerhard Berger, I hear you asking? Answer, he is in 5th place after having had his tyre stop. Mansell leads by 18 seconds. Senna 2nd, now 5 seconds ahead of Alain after all the schmozzle with Berger being passed. Prost is 4th, right behind, of course, his teammate. There they are. 5th now is going through in 5th position is Gerhard Berger, and then Piquet is in 6th position. There's the Ferraris. So, Ferrari well up. Now, that's Senna. Now, can the 2 Ferraris do anything about Ayrton Senna, who is in 2nd position? Alain goes through and passes the Minardi Ferrari, as does Alain Prost in 4th position. And then behind Alain Prost, of course, it's Berger in 5th position with Nelson Piquet 6th.
Yes, we've just heard from the pit that Berger had a badly blistered left front tyre, and we know that the left fronts were on a pretty marginal life here. But what that means is that Senna, we just observed that Senna was not pulling away from teammate Berger, and yet Berger came in with a blistered tyre. So one has to feel that Senna is likely to be in some sort of tyre problems as well. Now, Alain Prost behind him, and Prost will be fairly unhappy about this situation. He will be well keen to get past Alain as soon as possible, but unless Alain is ordered to let him by, I'm not sure that Prost is the man to try and muscle his way past, because that's what it will need to get by Alain.
Who is third? And there is Nigel Mansell. We haven't seen much of him lately because he's been so far out on his own, but now he's starting to thread his way through the field. Indeed, look at this lot he's got to get past, and the first of them is Pierluigi Martini, who is in 15th place in the Minardi. Then he's got to get past Johnny Herbert, then Thierry Boutsen, and then Satoru Nakajima. So he passes Martini, so Mansell has now left everybody up to 14th place. It's the White Lotus of Englishman Johnny Herbert, who won at Le Mans, of course, a couple of weekends ago with his teammate Bertrand Gachot in the Mazda. He's in 14th place. Mansell will take him shortly. Then he'll set about the Ligier Lamborghini of Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, who is in 13th place. And into the pits comes Emanuele Pirro in the Dallara. Now there is Boutsen, that is Mansell. Boutsen is 12th now, and Mansell of course leads the British Grand Prix, having passed Johnny Herbert. Mansell flying, this is bound to slow his lap times down, but of course he's got the fastest lap by quite a considerable margin so far. And then after he's got past Thierry Boutsen, who is in 12th position, as you look at Alain, followed by Prost, and Prost is now starting to challenge for third position, with Senna some 6 seconds ahead of the two Ferraris.
And we have a new fastest lap for Jean Alain, who is being chased by Alain Prost, and one has to bear in mind that Mansell is clearly not going flat out at the moment. But these two are the two Ferrari drivers. Prost, probably the quicker of the two if they were both alone, would like to get past Alain. There's the man they're chasing in the foreground, Ayrton Senna, just gone out of picture. And we wait with interest to see if Senna has any tyre problems himself. The car seems to be going all right at the moment, and the Ferraris aren't hauling him in at any huge speed. And it may be that if Senna's clever, he's looked after his tyres. Because somehow he doesn't look like a man who's got a blistered left front at the moment. And also we know that Berger has a tendency to be a little bit rougher with the car and therefore more inclined to overheat the tyres. So there's Ayrton Senna. There's Jean Alain, and we'll give you a gap between those two in just a moment. And Senna is some 6 seconds ahead of Alain. And the new fastest lap of the race for Alain Prost. He posts, there it is on the caption. So the two Ferraris at the moment the quickest on the circuit, but Senna is virtually holding them with that 6-second advantage, and he's not going to give it up easily.
Indeed, Ayrton Senna there, you just saw him tear one of the tear-offs off his helmet. You saw a glint as the plastic material caught the sunlight. That means it had got dirty, and there's several layers of them that he can clear the visor with. Ayrton Senna in second position. He's actually lapping a tenth a second or so faster than Mansell at the moment. But Nigel doesn't need to worry. He's got a lead of nearly 16 seconds, and this is lap 28. But in fifth position is Nelson Piquet in the Benetton Ford. We are with him now, going down the hangar straight towards Stowe Corner at about 190 miles an hour until he backs off. There's the order. Mansell 5 leads, Senna 1 second, the Ferraris of Alain 28 and Prost 27, third and fourth.
I wish I could see in Piquet's mirror, because Berger should be looming very large in that mirror. And we might just see a McLaren nose come alongside, because remember, there is Berger, not looming quite as large as I thought, but remember that Berger, new fastest lap there for Mansell. Berger had just previously put in a quick one, and remember that he is on fresh tyres, and he's the only man out there to have, or the quick runners anyway, to have changed tyres so far. Nelson Piquet in 5th place, and struggling to stay with the quick men, and that may be the Pirelli tires that he's on, because he's the first of the Pirelli runners on the road.
Lap 29, top 12. Mansell leads by 16 seconds. Senna second. There are Alain and Prost, third and fourth. Piquet is fifth, followed by Berger sixth, who of course has changed tyres and will be going faster. Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford is seventh. Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell is eighth. Mark Blundell has passed Martin Brundle to ninth position. 11th place is Satoru Nakajima. 12th Boutsen, 1 lap down. Johnny Herbert is 13th, 1 lap down, ahead of Martini 14th, De Cesaris 15th, Suzuki 16th, Hakkinen 17th, Pirro is 18th, Morbidelli is in 19th position, and JJ Leto is in 20th place, as into the pits comes one of the Brabhams. I just saw it disappearing into the pit lane. It's Martin Brundle. Martin Brundle going into the pit lane from 10th position as Senna passes Johnny Herbert.
Yes, and Senna's picked up a bit of traffic now. He's got some back markers to lap. And there is the Brabham pit, changing tyres on Brundle's car, but it was a very late decision. He went into the pits from the track rather than from the normal pit road entrance, and whether the officialdom will have a sense of humour failure about that, I don't know, but he certainly surprised his pit, so it certainly wasn't a routine pit stop as we look at the two Ferraris. In smart line astern, in formation. Prost doesn't like the formation, I'm sure, because he's at the wrong end of it. And they're catching that gaggle. Oh, and a spin by Alain Prost. And Prost lost it under braking there. Now, he should be all right. And it'll take him a few laps, and that's Mika Hakkinen, is it? I think, or Johnny Herbert. At club corner.
Yeah, it's Mika Hakkinen, and Prost lost it. He will have picked up a lot of dirt and grass in that spin, but he'll soon wear that off at the racing speed and the heat that the tyres generate. But of course, he's now lost touch with Jean Alesi in third position, who's chasing Ayrton Senna some 5.2 seconds behind the Brazilian, as Pierluigi Martini, who is in 12th place, is caught by Ayrton Senna.
And that would have to have been a lapse of concentration by Prost. He wasn't under any pressure, and I think that really demonstrates just how easily these cars get away from him when a man of Prost's experience can let go. And now we can see again, we'll have a look. Now let's see. Oh, and he just bounced it on the curb. You see, that was a bad bit of bad error, a little one on concentration, because he'd no need to put the wheel on the curb, but he bounced it on the end of that curb. There is the bit of curb in the background there that he caught it on, and that threw the car, and they do get thrown badly by curbs, and that was a bad mistake by Prost for a man of his experience at his level. But you see, they do have to go in tight on that curb.
Piquet into the pits from 7th position to change tyres, and there he is, Nelson Piquet, pit lane. That was a quick stop, because he'd hardly, well, not as quick as I thought it was from the look of it. And going out behind him is Mika Hakkinen. Of course, after his spin, he was probably due for a tyre change anyway, so he sensibly decided to come in straight away. The youngest man in the race, only 22 years old.
Yes, and that was a good decision by Hakkinen, because it's pit stop time, and that's one of the Lolas. Stopped out there. And Prost, I was going to say, should have learned from Hakkinen, but that's a lazy, is it, with a puncture? That is certainly... Oh, no, it's Prost with a skew-whiff nose. So it's a lazy. So the Ferrari's in all sorts of disarray. I don't know how Alesi did that. We didn't see that happen. But Alain Prost, I was saying, should maybe have done what Hakkinen did with tyres with all that dirt on them. Rather than clean them up on the track, which takes a while, he should maybe have come straight in.
Prost, of course, is in third position now. It won't take nearly as long, or shouldn't take nearly as long, unless the mounting points have been damaged and the retainers have been damaged, to replace the nose on Jean Alesi's Ferrari. As James said, we don't know why it happened, but never mind. He's out. Alesi retires.
Yes, well, they want to get that car out of the way, because Prost is going to be in for tyres very soon, I would have thought. the lazy. Now, let's have a look. Here we can see again, we see what happened with the lazy. Oh, and he just got his nose run over there, made contact, and that was the Lola that we saw spun off, so that was a contact. And I have to say that that was a lazy being a little bit over-ambitious, trying to pass a back marker at the spot he's made his own earlier in the race, but he was doing it from too far behind, and he just wasn't seen. And you have to say that that was a self-inflicted accident by a lazy in a little bit of impetuosity, really.
Hitting Eric Bernard's Lola, and this is Nigel Mansell that we're riding with now into Stowe Corner. 100 miles an hour, out of it into this new section at the Vale, curves left, drops downhill, climbs slightly into that second gear left-hander before the looping right at club. And Nigel Mansell now leads Ayrton Senna by 23 seconds. And although Senna closed the lap times between himself and Mansell at one point in the race, Mansell is now lapping quicker, 128.1 compared with 129.7. But significantly, Prost, who is 14 seconds behind Senna, Prost in third place, is lapping a second faster than the Brazilian now. Berger is up into fourth position, Gachot is in fifth place, and behind him Stefano Modena is in the points at sixth.
Well, the interesting thing is, for those who are planning to make tyre stops, they better do them soon, or they certainly won't be making the best use of their two sets of tyres, because we're getting quite near half distance. And remember that the work that the tyres to make it equal is well before half distance for the first set, because the car is that 50% heavier when it starts the race, and it works the first set much harder. There's Mansell, and I'm beginning to get the feeling that he might want to stay on one set for the whole race. He certainly got, if he hasn't got a wear problem, then he can afford to do it, because he's not running nearly at full speed. He's got, there you go on the caption, 24 seconds nearly on Senna, so he's really got a very comfortable position. No reason to make a tyre stop when you don't absolutely have to, because there's always a risk involved. The car can stall, there can be things can go wrong in a tyre stop, so if you don't have to make one, you don't. Mansell can afford that luxury, but I don't know about the others.
To show you how comfortably Nigel Mansell is driving by his standards, he's lapping in about 128.7, whereas this morning in full race trim, race tyres and full tanks, he was lapping in 126.8. So he's lapping 2 seconds outside the time that he did this morning. And here is a tip for when Mansell comes in to change tyres, if he comes in to change tyres. You will remember, those of you who watched the French Grand Prix, that and Mansell waving to get Stefano Modena to move out of the way, but I was saying you'll remember that both Mansell and Riccardo Patrese had long pit stops, 10 and 12 seconds, but since then the wheel nuts have been redesigned, and just a week to enable them to make a quicker pit stop. And Alain Prost, team mechanics in the Ferrari position, are getting ready to bring the Frenchman in. They're doing it really quickly. Prost is in third place, and he's 12.6 seconds behind Senna, who is second now.
Well, I'm not sure that Prost's brain is working as well as it used to, because here is Prost approaching us. The Ferrari team are getting tyres ready in a bit of a panic for him. But quite frankly, with that spin going onto the dirt, the tyres, when they're hot, they're so sticky, they pick up all that gravel and stuff, and it takes 2 or 3 laps sometimes to clean the tyres off, to get it all off. And Mika Häkkinen showed what should be done, a quick thinking decision. He had nearly half a lap in which to do it, but to come straight in. And that is the Williams pit we're looking at, so maybe they're getting ready for Mansell. So here is Prost. Going through the Vale, that's where he went off. Now into Club Corner. The car winding up through the gearbox. And then the Abbey under the bridge, nearly flat out through Bridge Corner. And then we've got the stadium complex here, and we'll see if Alain Prost then peels off right into the pits for fresh rubber. He's past half distance, so this won't be the best use of the available tyres. And Prost is staying out there, so no exit to the pit road this time for Alain Prost.
In the meantime, Ayrton Senna's race plan is very obvious indeed. With Mansell now 25 seconds ahead of him, it's quite clear that the Brazilian is settling for second in Britain as he settled for third in France. There he is in the background, because even if Nigel Mansell wins this race and gets the maximum 10 points, if Ayrton Senna finishes second to get 6 points, it would mean that Senna would still be 21 points ahead of Nigel Mansell in the World Championship, i.e. Mansell would only have closed the gap by 4 points, the difference between first 10 points and second 6 points. So Senna will be quite happy to drive round, knowing that both McLaren and Honda have got better cars coming for Germany.
And Mansell on his way into the pits. There we have him, Nigel Mansell coming in. So the Williams team are getting those tyres ready for him, and it seems a strange decision to make their tyre stop so late, because it is well past the best time to do it, and they weren't under any pressure. So but the only possible result of that is that that was a good quick stop, good routine stop, as Senna goes past, waving at the Jordan car in front of him, trying to get past him, and he's having difficulty in getting through. But it may be, though, that they looked at the tyres from the other Goodyear runners and information that they achieved.
Well, you can see how close it is now between Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna. Mansell having completed his pit stop in 8.4 seconds, and that shows that all the hard work by the Williams design and construction people at Didcot was worthwhile. But now we really have a race on our hands for the lead, because Senna, who of course has not taken on new tyres, is closing up on Nigel Mansell, who did well to get out of the pit lane in front of the McLaren. But Mansell will have an advantage. Very soon his tyres will be up to full race temperature, and he's got a new set of Goodyears on, whereas Ayrton Senna has got a very worn set now. And even if the Brazilian decides to go through for the full race on the C compound, which is what we expected, he will be at a disadvantage from now on. Lap 37 out of 59 in the British Grand Prix. Mansell leads Ayrton Senna. Alain Prost is third. Gerhard Berger is fourth. Up into fifth place has come Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford. Sixth is Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell. Seventh is Nelson Piquet's Benetton. Eighth is Blundell. So he's 1 place off the seventh at Brabham Lead.
And that is De Cesaris, and he's been in front of Senna for several laps, and Senna is beginning to get cross, and the reformed Andrea De Cesaris is was going back to his old ways. Well, Senna has finally got past, but that's taken him a good 3 laps to achieve, and he won't be best pleased with De Cesaris then, when he had Mansell just in front of him and a possible chance to challenge for the lead. Although I think even Senna would concede, as Mansell weaves about trying to pick up the toe behind the Tyrrell there. But I think he would concede, as Frank Williams, watching everything eagle-eyed on the television. But I think Senna would concede that Mansell on fresh tyres is really much too much, and in the Williams for Senna to do anything about. But at the same time, it's nice to show your nose and have a bit of a nibble at him to put him under pressure.
I thought Nigel Mansell was going to be held up by Satoru Nakajima in the Tyrrell Honda there, but the Japanese driver moved over and led him through. So it's lap 38 now. That's the order. 5 is Mansell leading, 1 is Senna second, 27 is Prost third, 2 is Berger fourth, 32 is Bertrand Gachot in the points again for the Jordan team, and in 6th position Stefano Modena was number 4. 7th is Nelson Piquet. In 8th position Mark Blundell. Nakajima is 9th, having just been lapped by Nigel Mansell. 10th is De Cesaris, so both the Jordans are in the top 10. Martini is 11th, and Johnny Herbert is in 12th place in the Lotus, having finished 10th in France last weekend. A real fillip and encouragement for the Lotus people at Hethel. So, Senna. Now, his last lap time was exactly a second slower than Nigel Mansell, who passes Mark Blundell in the Brabham Yamaha, who moves over and lets him through. And I remind you that Blundell is in 8th position. Mark, who has driven extremely well in his first season of Grand Prix racing, has yet to finish higher than 11th. He was in 9th place in France when he went off and hit the pit wall. Stepped out of the car okay, but his race was over. And so now the race has settled down for a bit with Alain, of course, out of the picture, thanks to that nose job that he had to have done on the Ferrari. Indeed, he's a long, long way behind now and out of the race, effectively. So Mansell on his 39th lap. It's getting towards countdown time now for the Englishman who won in 1986 and 1987.
Yes, I feel that maybe the Williams team decided to change Mansell's tyres as a precaution against possible blistering or even punctures late in the race, because in terms of speed there was no reason to do it, and it was a risk. But Mansell, as a result of the fresh tyres, you see, look, there is a new fastest lap, and it's way quicker than anybody else. So he can soon put a lot of daylight between himself and Senna, because there's no way that Senna can match that speed. He'd be pushed to go 2 seconds slower than that. He'd be quite happy if he could do that speed for the rest of the race, mid-28.5.
Well, Nigel's actually giving Senna a taste of his own medicine, because Senna is famous for his forceful tactics in cutting through the field and lapping people. He has a reputation of having people move over as soon as they see that red and white shape with the yellow blob on top of it, which is the helmet with Senna's head inside it. But Senna was held up there, no doubt about it, whereas Nigel Mansell had got past Nakajima, who is being chased by De Cesaris in 10th position. And Senna now, who was only a second or so behind Mansell when the Englishman came out of the pits, is now 6.5 seconds behind. But still, I say again, Senna will not be unhappy with this situation. Of course, he would like to win his 31st victory, but he will be happy with second place and the 6 points that go with it, because after all, Silverstone and the British Grand Prix, important as they are but 1/16th of what these men are racing for, and that's the World Championship.
Well, Mansell is now going so quickly, some 9 seconds. Blundell goes into the pits there in the Brabham Yamaha. So 9 seconds ahead of Senna already. Another new lap record on the next lap, so he's carving his times down now with the fresh benefit of fresh tyres. And in fact, Senna's bigger worry now is Alain Prost, who is slowly hauling him in behind, and Prost, and there's Blundell. That was a quick change. That's exiting the pit road there. And that was quite a quick tyre stop. And Prost is now only 7 seconds, or just under 8 seconds behind Ayrton Senna.
Yes, I'm watching Mark Blundell very carefully, a star of the future if ever I saw one, because he's only 26 years old now. And this is only his 7th Grand Prix. The man who's come up to Formula 1 by way of Formula 4 2000 and Formula 3000 and sports car racing with Nissan, and he's had several near place situations this year, only to lose them for one reason or another. Well, he's come in, he's changed tyres, he is in 10th position, 1 lap adrift, but it's still Mansell now nearly 10 seconds ahead of Senna. And you remember how recently it was since Mansell came in the Williams, as up to and past Johnny Herbert goes Alain Prost to lap the Englishman. Prost in 3rd position and Johnny Herbert is in 12th on the race order on lap 41. Mansell leads, Senna 2nd, Prost 3rd, Berger 4th, and Berger is 23 seconds behind Prost. This race is effectively between Mansell in the lead, Senna 2nd and Prost 3rd, with Mansell way out in front, of course, and then Bertrand Gachot 5th and Modena 6th.
Well, Senna's tyres must be all right, and he must have been listening to me, because just as I talked about the threat from Prost behind, Senna responded by putting in his fastest lap of the race on the very next lap. and that actually has stemmed the tide of the arriving Prost a little bit, because it's now 8.5 seconds, the gap. He's opened it a little bit. There goes Senna now into the new stadium complex. Slows the cars down, gives the crowd a chance to get a decent look at him. And that's accelerating away, and there is the signal to Senna. There we are, 8.6 up on Prost, and that was a signal about the mixture setting that the Honda people wanted to use at the bottom, because they have telemetry that tells them everything that the engine's doing, everything that's happening inside the engine all the time. A constant readout in the pits. That information is being radioed through, or it comes out lap after lap as the car crosses the line. The computer fires off the latest info, and the engineers can then dissect it and think about it, and then tell him what to do.
And it also told him that there are 17 laps to go. It didn't tell it. Yes, it did tell him actually that Mansell was 11 seconds in front of him. And here is Senna. Now, I was talking earlier about the fact that Honda and McLaren have instituted, I'd hardly call it a crash program, but it's a very urgent program to improve this car. Honda the V12 engine and McLaren the chassis, and McLaren have actually got 5 cars here for this British Grand Prix meeting. They had them all lined up in the pit lane yesterday, and they've been using those 5 cars, the 3 race cars. Oh, that is well, I can tell you only that it's one of the Jordans with the nose off.
And that looks like it's been an accident on the straight, because he's gone a long way, and that accident must have started on the straight. And that's Andrea de Cesaris, and that looks like quite a big accident. There will be debris on the circuit, and he's now hobbling a little bit. Yes, he's bashed his ankle probably, but the car looks to have stood up to whatever impact it had quite well. But it seems that something has happened, whether something broke on the car or whether there was contact with another car. He's definitely got a slightly sore leg. And Alain Prost is into the pits, and he was around those happenings then. And in the meantime, Senna, in fact, had responded in a canny race by Senna, because he speeded up, not just the lap I told you about, but the next lap as well. And he actually extended his lead over Prost to 9.5 seconds in short order. So just fresh tyres for Prost. So hasn't suffered any damage, but I don't think that he's going to be able to catch Senna now, even though he'll have the benefit of fresh rubber. So Prost back out, and now hopefully we can see a replay of the Jordan. Now we see, well, we don't see where he lost it or how he lost it, but we see the Jordan, and that is quite a big impact on that wall. Oh, crunch. And that left front corner of the car appears to have taken the impact well. Now, whether he lost it on his own just coming out of Abbey Curve, oh, that was close for the Tyrrell there. Whew, dear oh dear. And that was Prost locking up behind, and that was probably why he went for tyres. He flat-spotted his tyres trying to avoid the Jordan. Now, as I say, he could have lost it, just hit the curb coming out of Abbey. That might have caused that, or else it could have been some problem with the car.
And it was Satoru Nakajima who was locking up frantically to avoid the Jordan. And as I have said before, that is outstanding testimony to how very strong these modern Grand Prix cars are. That is actually where Barry Sheene had his dreadful accident on the Suzuki in practice for the British Motorcycle Grand Prix years ago. You come up over the crest, and that's where Andrea de Cesaris lost it. So now Nigel Mansell still leads, but now in 3rd position behind Senna, it's Gerhard Berger, with Alain Prost having gone into the pits. So this will be a matter of joy for Ron Dennis, the head of the McLaren team, because his men in 2nd and 3rd places are on 10 points for the Constructors' Championship, and since Williams were getting pretty close to them, they will be very welcome indeed. 5 Mansell leads, 1 Senna 2nd, 2 Berger 3rd, 27 Alain Prost down to 4th position. Bertrand Gachot, however, in the Jordan is still in 5th position. Up to 6th has come Modena. 7th is Nelson Piquet. 8th Satoru Nakajima, 9th Martini, 10th Johnny Herbert, as he was in the French Grand Prix. Marc Blundell is 11th, and Emmanuel Pirot is in 12th place. Senna is driving an impeccable race. I've heard an awful lot of nonsense here at Silverstone about Senna. People have been saying he's a spent force and he's over the hill. Nothing, believe me, could be further from the truth. He's in a car which is not as good as he would like it to be, and yet he has been consistently doing well and getting places. 3rd place in France, 3rd place in Mexico, and he's on target for 2nd place here at Silverstone, which really is the best he could have hoped for. I mean, he had every reason to expect that he would be caught and passed by Riccardo Patrese, as well as Nigel Mansell, who took him on the first lap, and we're with Nigel now on his 46th lap out of 59 now. Not very far to go as he goes round the complex, coming up to the right-hander and out of the corner at Woodcote, into this straight, down towards Copse Corner. There's his pit board, place 1 plus 18 seconds at the Union Jack to show that it's the signal for Nigel Mansell. Had it been Riccardo Patrese, it would have been the Italian colours, but Riccardo Patrese, of course, out after that confrontation on lap 1.
And maybe they didn't give him the signal about laps to go, because I think that was 13 laps to go, and maybe they didn't like to hang that out, because normally they might have given him that bit of info as well. So Mansell having it very easy now. He's eased up again on speed, put his fresh tyres on, which was a slightly late decision, but then, as I say, it may have been from information supplied by Goodyear that the tyres were a bit marginal about lasting safely for the distance. They had the luxury of a big enough lead to be able to change and get out still in first place, which they did, but wasn't by that much. And then Mansell put in a few really charging laps, took him off to a big lead with the benefit of fresh rubber and the superb performance of the Williams-Renault. And now he's back in his dominant position. Berger has moved up to 2nd, but Prost on fresh rubber is now chasing Berger, and that's the battle of the race. Berger in 3rd place, Prost in 4th. Senna has driven a very canny tactical race to maintain what is now a comfortable 2nd place, but at times has been under some threat. And Prost is some 8.8 seconds behind Gerhard Berger and chasing.
Yes, how the wheel of fortune in Grand Prix racing turns, because, as I have said before, for the first 4 races of 1991, it really looked as though we were in for a repeat of 1988, when the McLaren team won 15 out of the 16 races, and would have won the 16th had Jean-Louis Schlesser in the Williams not harpooned Ayrton Senna leading at Monza. They would have had a clean run, and that was their ambition for this year, after having won in Phoenix, Brazil, San Marino and Monaco, only to have their hopes dashed by Nelson Piquet's victory in Canada, and then the fact that they were no longer the top team, confirmed by Riccardo Patrese and Mansell's victories in Mexico and France. So let's have a look at how Nigel Mansell is tackling the race and how Gerhard Berger is, because we haven't seen all that much of Berger in Grand Prix racing this year on account of the fact that he retired from all the 5 Grand Prix previously except San Marino and Brazil. But Gerhard is not a man to be underestimated, with 5 wins, 1 for the Benetton team and 4 for Ferrari. And then he... Now look for Berger. There's Berger, and only 7 seconds behind him is Alain Prost after his pit stop. There is the Frenchman, and I'll be interested to see how their lap times compare. Mansell is going around in 1 minute 27.5 at the moment. Now there is Berger, 3rd behind Senna, coming up to complete the lap. Look for Alain Prost in the background, who's got to pass Johnny Herbert and the Minardi Ferrari behind him as Berger comes through to complete the lap. And Silverstone's been lucky fortunate that the weather's held as well as it has. It's been an ideal day for racing, and now Berger is coming through to complete his 49th lap, and now we'll see what the difference is between them. Well, it's 11 seconds between Senna and Berger, and it's 4 seconds between Berger and Prost, just about 5 seconds. So, race order on this, the 49th lap. Nigel Mansell leading Ayrton Senna by 21.5 seconds. Then Berger in third place, who is 5 seconds ahead of Prost. And Prost is actually gaining very rapidly, 2.5 seconds a lap faster than Berger. He will be pushing for third place soon. Alain Prost, who is in fourth place in the World Championship, and Nigel Mansell is on his 50th lap now. Now it is countdown time for the Englishman. He's on lap 50. It's a 59-lap race. Nigel Mansell won the British Grand Prix in 1986, 1987. The British Grand Prix has always been the one where he has shone, in particular in response to the stimulus of his home crowd, and that is Prost. Now, Prost is the quickest man on the circuit at the present moment. I'll be able to tell you in a moment how the lap that he's about to complete on the comparatively new tyres, because it's not long since he came in. He's coming up to lap Johnny Herbert, the Englishman in the Lotus, who is now in 9th position, and he's ahead of Mark Blundell, who is in 11th place. It looks as though Brabham, sadly, are going to have to face up to pre-qualifying after the British Grand Prix, and Johnny Herbert is driving magnificently and confirming the faith that Peter Collins has in him.
Yes, and Prost is catching Berger. Not so much then, he was a bit held up, and Berger is really responding to the challenge. Berger has put in, just on that last lap, his fastest lap of the race, and so these two, although they're not line astern, they're not in combat, and there is a clear track between them, so Prost has a clear run at Gerhard Berger.
So, there is the top Grand Prix driver of the last decade, Alain Prost. I told you about his record, and he's an extremely nice man to go with it too. So, Mansell leads, Senna second, Berger third, Prost is catching him. Now, this is Bertrand Gachot, and this is the almost storybook story of the Jordan team, because Eddie Jordan has brought a Formula One team into Grand Prix racing this year after having been in Formula 3000, Formula 3. He took the decision to get into Grand Prix racing, and everything has come magnificently right for him. He took on Gary Anderson as his designer. He took on a lot of other star people from other teams and from people he knew in the racing business. They put together this really beautiful motor car. Eddie Jordan, being an Irishman with the gift of the Blarney, managed to persuade Michael Cranafus, the Ford Supremo, to let him have the Ford V8 works engine that other teams would have loved to have, and his drivers have repaid him. Bertrand Gachot is in 5th place in the British Grand Prix, chasing Alain Prost, but a long way behind him, and that's Emanuele Pirro. And behind Bertrand Gachot in 6th position, 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet, but not a great challenge at the present moment. That was him. There he is now in the new Benetton, the B191, which, like the Jordan, has a Ford HB V8 engine, but that has the very latest specification, whereas the Jordan is still racing with one of last year's spec engines. So Gachot is driving a superb race. That's number 32, the man who won at Le Mans. He's already had 2 points from a 5th place in Canada this year. And we're back now looking at Alain Prost in 3rd position. Can he do anything about Gerhard Berger and the gap that exists between the Ferrari number 27 and number 2, Gerhard Berger's McLaren? Senna is not doing anything at all about Mansell, who still leads the Brazilian by 23 seconds. So, on lap 51, Mansell leads, Senna second, Berger third, Prost fourth, Gachot fifth, Piquet 6th, Modena 7th, and Piquet is a lap behind now, as of course is Modena. Nakajima is 8th, Johnny Herbert is a magnificent 9th, Martini is 10th, Mark Blundell is 11th, Emanuele Pirro is in 12th position. Now there's Berger. Look at him across the line, the white line, and there's Prost behind him.
Yes, and in fact Berger has responded to the challenge from Prost. He's going quicker and quicker. He's done another fastest lap of his for the race, and he is managing to fend Prost off, and I don't think Prost is going to be able to catch him now, and he may not even bother to maintain the chase or not an absolutely 11/10 commitment, because Berger has shown Prost that he can withstand the challenge.
Well, it's almost been a racing demonstration by Nigel Mansell. I said before the race began, he was at the top of his very considerable form, and he has proved it here at Silverstone today, taking the lead on the first lap, holding it all the way, coming in for his tyre stop. He maybe left it a bit too late, but in the event it really didn't matter, because he still got out of the pits in front of Ayrton Senna, and I have no doubt that if he'd come out of the pits behind Ayrton Senna, being on new tyres, he would rapidly have caught and passed the Brazilian, because I can't see Senna trying very hard to keep him back, knowing, as I have said before, Senna, that if he finished second he would be doing extraordinarily well, and he would still have a massive lead in the World Championship with another 8 races to go. But if it goes on like this, there's no guarantee that it will. The remaining 8 races in the World Championship could be one of real nail-biting excitement. Mansell hasn't altogether given up hopes of winning the World Championship for the first time. He's come pretty close to it several times. Finished second, finished fourth, nearly won it until that blowout that we all remember in the Australian Grand Prix, going down the Brabham Straight. And the crowd is starting to work itself into a lava here, supporting their man. They've been supporting coming here. I've never seen a driver who has got his public by the throat the way Nigel Mansell has. Well, he's certainly repaid everybody here and everybody who is watching, who support him. There you see the flags waving in the background, the Union Jacks. Nigel Mansell is now on his 54th lap in this 59-lap race. I am certainly not going to get agitated at this stage of the race, because I remember all too clearly doing so in Canada, as Mansell, with a commanding lead, came down to the last corner, only to stop with a problem that still hasn't been completely nailed as far as the public is concerned. And Mansell now is up behind Bertrand Gachot. He's up to the 5th place man, and he goes through now, and the only people who are on the same lap now as Mansell are Alain Prost, who is in 4th position, Gerhard Berger, who is 3rd, and Ayrton Senna in 2nd place. And Mansell is 25 seconds ahead of Senna. He's just absolutely driven Senna and the McLaren into the ground in this race, Mansell and Williams. And we haven't mentioned the word yet, Renault, and all credit to Renault, who decided to come back into Grand Prix racing with their V10 engine, which, under the control of their top technician Bernard Dudot, they have patiently developed and developed and developed until it is now, without doubt and without exception, as we look at Nigel Mansell with the word Renault over his visor, it's without doubt the best Grand Prix engine of the day. But Honda aren't taking that lying down, the research and development, and that's a Brabham. It's Blundell. Oh, Mark Blundell. He really does have the most appalling luck under the bridge. You remember he crashed in the French Grand Prix. Well, there's no damage to the car there except to the car itself. I think the engine's a bit part worn from the look of this smoke.
Yes, it's all coming out of the airbox. That looks like a comprehensive internal blow-up for the engine, and that was indeed a pity. So back with Mansell going serenely on his way, and really the shame of it is that this race has been too easy for Mansell. The Williams has been immensely superior. Patrese went out early on, and that really left him with very little hard racing to do. In fact, no hard racing. He got swept past Senna on the first lap, and all he'd had to do is judge his pace to the others and make one decision about a tyre stop. So down to Stowe corner, keeping it in tight fourth gear these days as the corner goes on, and then now into the Vale. A short squirt, that's the bit of curb there that tripped Alain Prost up earlier in the race, you may remember. Second gear there, and then accelerating up through the gearbox. And then through the Fat Abbey curve. Let's see if we can see the marks of where the Jordan had its problem. Nope, couldn't see that, but bridge corner, and then down into the complex. Second gear, the squirt, second gear again. Down to the squirt, back into second. And there we go, still in second. And now accelerating way over the start-finish line, up through the gearbox into sixth gear.
3 laps to go now, including the one he's on, and as Frank Williams watches, Nigel Mansell drives. Fastest in both practice sessions on Friday. Fastest in both practice sessions on Saturday. Fastest in the warm-up this morning. He's dominated the race, leading all the way, and he has put up the fastest lap, and therefore a record lap on this much revised Silverstone circuit of 1 minute 26.379. He did that on lap 43, when of course he was out after his tyre stop, and he leads Ayrton Senna now on lap 57 out of 59 by 23.5 seconds. Senna well ahead of Gerhard Berger, his third position teammate. Alain Prost in fourth place, and I don't think he can improve on it now. Bertrand Gachot, if Gachot finishes in fifth position where he is now, it will mean that the Jordan Ford team, who after all are a pre-qualification team, before they can even get to practice, try to get on the starting grid of 26, they have to pre-qualify, but they will have scored World Championship points in the last 4 Grand Prix, Britain, France, Mexico and Canada, from Andrea de Cesaris and Bertrand Gachot, provided Gachot finishes fifth where he is now. Nelson Piquet is in sixth position, and like Gachot, 1 lap down. Modena, that's Nigel Mansell's son, Leo, that was with Frank Williams. Modena 7th, Nakajima 8th, Johnny Herbert in 9th position, going like a train. Martini is 10th, and then 2 laps down, 11th and 12th, Pirro and Morbidelli. Well, maybe I spoke too soon, because you're looking at Ayrton Senna, but I can tell you that Nelson Piquet has moved up into 5th position to displace Bertrand Gachot from that place. But the Frenchman, Belgian, there's a lot of argument about what his nationality is, but Bertrand Gachot is in 6th place and therefore still in the World Championship points. So what I said applied in principle. And Mansell is on his 58th lap of this 3.2-mile Silverstone circuit, which must be adjudged to have been the most tremendous success, and a credit to Tom Walkinshaw and all his colleagues at the British Racing Drivers Club, who have planned and developed this circuit, made the revisions to it, and most importantly produced the money to pay for them. As Mansell crosses the line now, and he has completed 58 laps. Nigel Mansell is on his 59th lap. The crowd know it. You can see a ripple of movement around the circuit as the Union Jacks wave. Mansell is almost home to victory.
Yes, and really perfect weekend for Nigel Mansell, apart from the fact that Senna has been picking up quietly 6 points in second place, but it's really been too easy for Mansell, although I'm sure he won't be complaining about that, but maybe he would have enjoyed a bit more of a fight. The Williams-Renault has been quite superb, and it's enabled him literally to just get the job done, take it easy, judge his pace to Senna behind him, and really a marvellous way to finished the first half of the season, auguring well for the second half of the World Championship this year, and he really can win the championship. Senna's still quite a few points ahead, but Mansell can chip this away. The car is good enough. McLarens are struggling, and it could be the chance that Mansell has waited for so long to have a real crack at the World Championship.
Yes, Senna will still lead the championship by 21 points, but the way Mansell is chipping away at that lead, well, watch it, Nigel. He's waving to the crowd, but he's at Woodcote now, and he can coast over the line. Not that he does so. Nigel Mansell wins the British Grand Prix for the third time in his career. You don't need me to tell you how happy he is, and Frank Williams is pretty happy too. Mansell waves both arms out of the cockpit. Now, and Senna is stopping. Senna is stopping. Now, this is a really dramatic development. I don't know whether he's run out of petrol, but it will mean that Gerhard Berger is going to come through into second place. Prost will, and Senna is going to be pointless.
And a super extra bonus for Nigel Mansell. And in fact, Senna may still pick up points for fifth place, because he'd already completed 58 laps as Berger finishes. But Senna will, in fact, slot into fifth place, I believe. But certainly that's a points bonus for Mansell in the chase for the championship. And there is Ayrton Senna. Must be very disappointed, but he has had luck this year already.
Well, a race is never over until the drivers see the checkered flag. Nigel Mansell has seen it. Ayrton Senna is not going to see it. Berger finishes second. Alain Prost has finished in third position. Now that will mean that Senna should finish in fourth place, because he was further on the last lap than Nelson Piquet, who had already been lapped. But let us just enjoy this if you are a British enthusiast. And Nigel Mansell stops to take his rival Ayrton Senna back to the pits. On your way, Nigel, says Senna with a tap on the helmet. Shh, get off it, he says to the official or the spectator who comes. Well, you know, there has been a lot of talk about bad blood between Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna. This proves that there is not any bad blood.
And that also proves that it was a jolly good idea to put that camera on the front facing backwards, because we can get a look at both of them. Crowd have come over the fences. Has become traditional here now in the last few years. And in fact, that's brave stuff by Senna, because you need a lot of strength to hold on to one of those things. And at the end of a long Grand Prix, the arms are feeling too strong. But Mansell taking it very slowly. You're aware that it's not a happy thing to fall off a Grand Prix car, and the highly polished bodywork is pretty slippery. But what a lovely scene.
I really like that. Mansell voluntarily stops. He could have driven on. It was the decent thing to do, and as I said, it disproves the belief that there was enmity between the two men. So Nigel Mansell, a very, very justified and a very, very happy winner of his third British Grand Prix, carries home the man who leads the championship still by 21 points. It's going to get closer and closer from now on. We go to Germany on July the 28th. Then to Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Japan, and we finish the Grand Prix season of 1991 in Australia at Adelaide on November the 3rd. So there's a lot of racing mileage to be done. McLaren have got to catch up. Williams will try to stay ahead. Ferrari, of course, will be trying equally hard to close on both of them. And with the news that Tom Walkinshaw has bought into the Benetton team, we can expect that to be pulled very tightly together with the famous Walkinshaw leadership and discipline applied. The Grand Prix season of 1991 is getting better and better, but for Britain and for the spectators at Silverstone, this will do very nicely. Thank you. Nigel Mansell wins. The crowd invade the pit lane, and being British, as soon as they are asked to go back, they'll go back. What a wonderful scene. Mansell won the British Grand Prix by 42 seconds from Gerhard Berger. Alain Prost finished in third place. only those three completed the full distance. Thanks for the ride, Nige, says Ayrton Senna, who finished in 4th place, 1 lap down, ahead of Nelson Piquet 5th. Bertrand Gachot completes the race in the points for Jordan, with Modena 7th, Nakajima 8th, Martini 9th, Pirro 10th, Morbidelli 11th, Hakkinen 12th in the second Lotus, JJ Leto in 13th place, and Johnny Herbert struck a problem at the end but still finished in 14th position. So now the cars will go to the Parc Fermé, and in the Parc Fermé they will be examined by FISA officials, the Fédération Internationale Sportive Automobile, the governing body of world motorsport. Charlie Whiting, the ex-Brabham chief mechanic, will be there to make sure that everything is in order. But a Williams-Renault won, and that means to say, of course, that that's the 3rd Grand Prix in succession that a Renault engine has won for the Williams team. Patrese in Mexico, Mansell in France, Mansell in Britain. It's getting closer and closer and more interesting all the time. The Honda V12 powered McLaren of Gerhard Berger 2nd, and then of course the V12 Ferrari powered Ferrari of Alain Prost in 3rd place. Hard luck for Ayrton Senna, but he still gets 3 points to add to the 48 that he already had. So the gap is actually closer than I had prophesied at the time when I expected him to be second, as Mansell comes into the garage. Now, the Drivers' Championship after the first 8 rounds, confirms that Ayrton Senna leads with 51 points ahead of Nigel Mansell, 2nd. In 3rd position, Riccardo Patrese. 4th, Alain Prost. 5th, Nelson Piquet. 6th, Gerhard Berger. Mansell in the magnificent new press centre, the Jimmy Brown Centre, named after the late track manager of Silverstone that built it up over the years, and it's his son Hamish who runs Silverstone now. It's a bit tough on Nigel. He's got to climb all these stairs, but I'm sure he'll find the energy and the adrenaline to do it without a problem. He's a tremendously fit man, puffing his cheeks out a bit. Gary Crumpler, who is the Williams public relations manager, greets his driver home. And they're going into the interview room now. The cars go to the Parc Fermé. The top 3 drivers, Mansell, Berger and Prost, will go into the interview room. And incidentally, a word about Gerhard Berger. That's only his 3rd race finish, and he's yet to finish lower than 3rd. And that's Jean-Marie Balestre, who is the president of FISA. Alain Prost, 3rd position. Nigel Mansell in front of the adoring British crowd, with Monsieur Jean-Marie Balestre. Well done, Nigel. As the strains of the national anthem die down, 3 enormously popular Grand Prix racing drivers on the podium. On the left, Gerhard Berger, receiving the winner's award from His Royal Highness Prince Michael of Kent. Nigel Mansell. He led on lap 1 and he led on every one of the other 58 laps. He made the fastest lap. And Alain Prost finishes in 3rd place to take 4 points. And on the left, on the extreme left, receiving the Gold Cup, is Patrick Head, the chief designer, the man who leads the design team at Williams. And I emphasise design team, there he is, because no one man designs a Grand Prix car these days. It's down to a number of specialists in their various departments, engine, chassis, suspension and so on. And what a wonderful sight that is after all the talk about bad feelings there have been. Nigel Mansell lifts the arms of Gerhard, Berger and Alain Prost.
By Mr. Peter Bartel of Foster's.
Oh, now the moment that the photographers dread. It's champagne time. And Patrick Head is getting it. That's what you get for leading the design team, which produce a race-winning car. But it's not too much. Take that, Alain Prost. I know it's childish, but it really is. It's a great way of letting off steam. And Nigel throws, I think it was probably one of his gloves, to the crowd. Remember last year when he was driving for Ferrari, he threw his balaclava and both his gloves into the crowd after he had despairingly retired his Ferrari after a magnificent drive. What a wonderful showman Nigel is. They're his crowd and he is their man. But his day isn't over yet. It's into the interview room to tell the television networks all over the world, and I mean all over the world, because we are talking to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, Hong Kong. And there are, of course, commentators from all the European, South American and other countries telling the world about Nigel Mansell's victory in the 1991 British Grand Prix at Silverstone, beating Gerhard Berger's McLaren to 2nd place, Alain Prost Ferrari to 3rd position, Ayrton Senna, his chief rival in the World Championship, to 4th place, Nelson Piquet, 3 times a world champion, 5th position, and Bertrand Gachot for the new superb Jordan Ford team takes 6th position and the 4th consecutive World Championship points position this year. Yes, Prost getting rid of the champagne. Gerhard Berger doesn't actually look particularly pleased about his 2nd place. Yes, I will sign the cup. And he does so. The champagne, rather. Nigel, I wonder if Roseanne makes him look after the silver like that at their Port Erin home. Give it a rub, Nigel. Prost and Berger.
Give him the mic, please.
I love Nigel industriously polishing his cup. And right now, there in the interview room to find out what happened from their point of view is Jonathan Palmer.
Nigel, congratulations on absolutely superb performance. That was the one the crowd wanted, and it came. Did you have any problems on what looked to be a pretty easy race?
Oh, Jonathan, you know that isn't true. It was a hard race, and I blistered my first set of tyres and had to stop for tyres. I was trying to go the whole race. And then the last 10 laps, I was making half the gear changes I usually make because I had big problems with the gearbox. And in fact, the whole last lap, I went around the last 2 laps in 1 gear. And so I'm just pleased it wasn't any more laps than it was, because God forbid if we would have stopped again on the last lap.
Okay, Gerhard, things didn't seem to start too well. There was an incident with Patrese, then a pit stop earlier on, but this time your luck seemed to change. And whilst it's unfortunate for Ayrton, we're all absolutely thrilled to see you in 2nd place. Any problems for you on the way?
Yeah, the big problem, because Patrese just went over my front suspension. I had the front suspension bent, and the steering wheel was like this, and I could had all the blistered here, and I couldn't even, on one side, I couldn't steering right. So the tires gone, the first one, quite early, so I had to change tires, and then I just did so smooth as possible to not destroy the second set of tires.
Okay, Alain. It seemed at one time that you weren't going to stop for tyres there, but then after, I think it was the avoidance of the De Cesaris incident, you then came in. Did you plan on stopping for tyres? And if not, could you possibly have caught Gerhard, do you think? Or...
I think so. But because with the first set I was quite well. In fact, I spun first. I don't know what happened. Alizé lost some oil, got some oil on the screen, and I did a mistake. I touched the curb and I spun. Then the car was going quite well, even at the beginning, but Alizé overtook me in a very small room. And then I got some debris from the Cesaris crash, and I had to stop for tires, but I did not plan to stop. My tires were very good.
Nigel, that tyre stop, it seemed a little bit late. Was it purely precautionary, or did you need that second set of tyres?
No, I needed a second set of tyres because of the wheel weights. I think I lost one on the front and one on the back. I know I blistered them, but it was a vibration that made me stop. But the team did a great pit stop and came out. Then other than the last 10 laps when my heart was in my mouth, I mean, I was happy, but oh boy, the last few laps was hurting, because when you pull for a gear and it doesn't go in gear and you're stuck in neutral, you have to get another gear, otherwise everything will stop. And I had about 2 or 3 frights, but I mean, I'm here, so I'm happy.
Well, you were certainly the pre-race favourite here. All the crowd were backing you. How does it feel now to have actually done it here in front of the British crowd at Silverstone?
Well, it's strange, but I probably don't believe it. I mean, the crowd are just incredible, aren't they? I mean, my heart goes out to them. I thank them very much for the support. It is absolutely fantastic. It feels great, honestly.
Nigel Mansell, superb.
Well, that just shows, and there's a Mansell supporter if ever I saw one, that just shows that you can't always believe what you see. Those words of Nigel Mansell confirm that Williams have not overcome their semi-automatic gearbox problem. It means that they've had a problem in every race this year, and just as Senna was lucky to finish in all the first 4 Grand Prix and win them, so obviously was Mansell lucky to finish in the lead and to win here at Silverstone. And of course, Gerhard Berger's drive with the broken front suspension or bent front suspension was equally praiseworthy. But in the end, Nigel Mansell wins the British Grand Prix from Gerhard Berger's McLaren, Alain Prost's Ferrari, Ayrton Senna's McLaren and Nelson Piquet's Benetton, with Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford in 6th place. Stefano Modena 7th a lap down, as was Nakajima in 8th place, Pierluigi Martini in 9th position, Emanuele Pirro 10th, 2 laps down, ahead of Morbidelli 11th, and in 12th place Mika Hakkinen. Then the last 2 finishers, JJ Leto in the Dallara, and 4 laps down, Britain's Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. Well, the crowd is on the circuit. There's the Brazilian flags there, but Ayrton Senna's lead over Nigel Mansell in the World Championship is reduced to, what, 18 points? And Riccardo Patrese, 3rd, 11 points behind Nigel Mansell, with Alain Prost in 4th position. And McLaren, thanks to both their men finishing in the points, are now 22 points ahead of Williams-Renault, with Ferrari in 3rd place. Well, Benetton, Tyrrell and Jordan in 4th, 5th and 6th places in the Constructors' Championship. It's been a marvellous race. So, a superb, virtually start-to-finish 18th Grand Prix win for Nigel Mansell. But his revelation after the race that he'd had severe gearbox problems showed that Williams have still got work to do before they can guarantee reliability. A surprise but well-deserved 2nd place for Gerhard Berger in spite of his deranged suspension, and Alain Prost 3rd, the only other driver to go the full distance. Tough luck for Senna, whose problem was fuel starvation, but he still finished in the points at 4th, a lap down ahead of Nelson Piquet. And Bertrand Gachot's 6th place made it a great day for the Jordan team. Senna's last lap problem means his World Championship lead over Mansell has shrunk to 18 points, and that Mansell could still win the championship, because he's now well ahead of Patrese, Prost, Piquet and Berger. In the Constructors' Championship, both McLarens finishing in the top 6 means that the Woking team now head Williams by 12 points, a comfortable situation. with the rest, Ferrari, Benetton, Tyrrell and the superb Jordan team sliding out of touch. Well, the 1991 Grand Prix season's well and truly alive now. In 2 weeks' time, it's the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim.